recently, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, indoor volleyball became the highest participation sport. It passed other sports like soccer and basketball and others. Thousands and thousands of people have been working behind the scenes for decades to help get it to this wave of growth now.
Hello and welcome to About Time, the show where we have long overdue conversations about the journey of women in sports. From coaching the U.S. women's national volleyball team to historic Olympic gold in 2021 and having claimed Olympic gold in both indoor volleyball and beach volleyball as a player, our guest has not only proven to be a skilled coach, but is also considered one of the greatest volleyball players ever. His extensive tenure in this sport brings a wealth of knowledge on the evolution of the game and what it takes to support and uplift its athletes. Please help me welcome the legendary Karch Kiraly. This interview is brought to you by WeCOACH. Prior to Title IX, over 90% of women collegiate sports teams were coached by women. Today, over 50 years later, that number has decreased to 41%. That's why WeCOACH launched Move the Numbers to help change the landscape for women coaches and the student athletes they lead. WeCOACH is a one-of-a-kind nonprofit membership organization dedicated to recruiting, advancing, or retaining women coaches in all sports and levels through year-round professional growth and leadership development programs. WeCOACH fosters a diverse and inclusive community of over 10,000 coaching leaders who inspire young women to follow in their footsteps. If she can see her, she can be her. Together, we move the numbers to support and increase women in coaching. We teach, we inspire, we motivate, we lead, we coach. Visit our website at wecoachsports.org. That's wecoachsports.org.
I'm Karch Kiraly, and it's about time for you to pay more attention to this amazing sport of volleyball, especially in this year of 2024 with the Olympics and Paralympics coming up.
Coach, so decorated, properly dubbed the king of beach volleyball as the most winningest player in beach volleyball history. With 148 titles, if I'm not mistaken, you are a legendary coach and a legendary player as well. How has your perspective on sports evolved over the years, and what lessons have you taken from your playing career to now your coaching career?
Well, I fell in love with this game at a very young age. My dad played on the Hungarian junior national team, and so lots of parents pass on their love of sports to their children, and so I got that gift. And I've actually been so blessed to have 3 careers inside this sport of volleyball. One is as a player, both indoors and on the beach. Then I had a television career and got to work a couple of Olympic Games as an analyst for beach volleyball and lots of indoor events and lots of NCAA championships too. And then the third one is for the last 15 years or so. It started before then with a different program, but the last 15 years or so with the USA women's national team program, multiple Olympic Games. And so I think when you go through new careers, I think it's good to start something new regularly, to be a beginner or at least a relatively inexperienced starter in something. It forces us to be the best learner that we can be or to learn at a faster rate. So I got a late start in coaching compared to many of my peers who've been doing it longer. And so to have a learner's mentality, to be willing to work at the edge of one's abilities, to be willing to screw it up and make mistakes and learn from those and acknowledge those and let other people around us kind of own those mistakes. Those are all, I think, being part of the trying to develop a learner mentality. So 3 times, 3 different careers. And so I'm trying to be a good learner.
Is there a specific experience or a moment, something that has played a role in you becoming who you are today as a leader, that has shaped you as a leader or a coach?
I started bopping the ball back and forth with my dad at 6 years old, and we started playing on a court when I was 9 years old, and then we read an article in Sports Illustrated. There are very few articles about volleyball, whether about women's volleyball or men's volleyball. But in the early 70s, there was an article about it, and it talked about some of the sports greats at that time. And it said the youngest ever to play in an adult beach volleyball tournament in California was 11. So we thought, well, that'd be kind of fun to to tie that record and play in a tournament at 11 years old, not an age group tournament, but a regular adult tournament, and not at the top level of the game. It would be what's called novice. But in beach volleyball, most tournaments are double elimination, and so my dad and I played 2 games. We lost both of them, but barely lost, and it was an incredibly empowering moment. It's really difficult for girls to grow up to be good women, women who can have a positive impact on those around them. It's really really difficult for boys to grow up to be good men. But on this one tiny level, my father gave me a great gift that I could stand toe to toe with grown men across the net. I could see fear in their eyes. No, none of them wanted to be able or wanted to have to go back to their friends and tell them that they lost to a scrawny little 11-year-old kid. And so it was really empowering that in some sliver of my life, I could start to stand at the same level as grown adults. And so I've always tried to keep that in mind. It's, as I said, it's difficult for young girls and boys to grow up to be people who have a strong impact on those around them. But it's wonderful to have some kind of igniting or inspiring event, and I was really lucky to have it at 11.
Wow, that's an awesome experience to share with your father. And it makes sense now that you developed that competitive edge at such a young age to go out and compete with adults, which is something that you were known for as a player, was your competitive edge and your emotion as a player. Something else that you were known for, though, was the hot pink hat that you wore. And I got 2 questions. How did that come about? And where do I get that hat? Because in today's day, they would say that's pretty drippy. How did that come about?
It's fun. I've had a member of our team teach me some of the terms these days, so I get the drip. Originally, I had, as many beach volleyball competitors do, they'll have some sponsors that will help them afford to travel to tournaments all over the world to compete and represent in sometimes their country, like at the upcoming Olympic Games. And so I had a sponsor, a sunglass sponsor, and they provided me 4 different colors of hats. And the first one I tried was black. I thought that one looked the coolest of all of them. This was in the, I don't know, late 80s, early 90s. There was certainly lots of optic colors too, but the black was like, oh man, this is going to be cool. But unfortunately, I wore it in Florida in June, and it just about fried my head, and my brains were almost scrambled eggs. So I had to say, okay, I can't do that color. I need something lighter that's going to reflect the sun. And tried lime green. It was okay. And then tried the pink one, also had optic yellow, tried the pink, and we won one tournament, and then we won another, and we won another, and we won like 10 tournaments in a row. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to stick with that. So it started as a superstition, then it became a tradition, and then finally I was stuck with it. I couldn't even if I wanted to change colors, by the time I was so in deep, I just had to keep going with the pink. And so that's how it is. I have just a few left over from that era, and I usually save it for auctioning off at fundraisers, like for the Starlings program, which supports, is a program really dear to my heart that supports providing volleyball opportunities for young girls who could otherwise not be able to afford those opportunities, or for something like First Point, which is also building opportunities, the First Point Foundation, on the men's side. So both women and men's side of volleyball, some really great things happening.
Why is creating those opportunities for youth something that's important to you?
Volleyball has, as you touched on at the beginning, it's really in the midst of an explosion, but that the work and the foundation for that has been going on for decades, since before 1972 and Title IX, both on the men's side, where really it maybe got a head start, but now on the women's side, there are vastly more opportunities for women in college than for men. But I love that it's grown to that extent. also would like to see more opportunities for men. They're happening, which is great. And so we just think who've been in the sport for a long time that it's really helpful when any side of the sport is making progress, whether it's the women or the men, whether it's indoors or sand, whether it's international or college or club or high school.
When you see it just exploding the way that it is and expanding the way that it is, from the Nebraska game where there was over 92,000 fans in a sold out Cornhuskers football stadium for the largest crowd ever in the history of volleyball. When
And
you
not
see
just
moments
volleyball,
like
but
that
in the history of women's sports, period, the
in the
largest
history of
crowd of
women's
any
sports, yes.
sport, any country on the planet.
We can't miss that, along with the expansion of these newer professional leagues. What factors do you believe contribute most to the increasing popularity of this sport?
I think there are a number. Number one, lots of people are participating. It was recently, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, especially on the women's side, indoor volleyball became the highest participation sport. It passed other sports like soccer and basketball and others. Not that anyone would denigrate those sports. We love those sports too, but it's clearly become very popular with girls and young people to play in club, to play in high school as a participation sport, and also expanded on the college level. So participation has grown. Television exposure has grown. Our sports have done well at the Olympic Games. For example, in 2008, the men won the indoor gold medal. The women won the indoor silver. And then on the beach, the women won gold and the men won gold. So 3 golds and a silver. And then the sitting team did really well too. And so when you have multiple medal performances that people can pay attention to every 4 years in the culmination of the Olympics and the Paralympics, you put participation together with exposure, with popularity, with the fact that some really big time, I guess, famous athletes in sports like pro football, in the NBA, grow up, have families, have daughters who play and who often choose to play volleyball. So they learn more about the sport and get more interested in it, which leads to their support, even in a financial way, to professional leagues that are now starting up. It's a combination of things, and thousands of people have been working behind the scenes for decades to help get it to this kind of wave of growth now.
Yeah, I saw that the NBA even following Jermaine O'Neal's daughter in Texas when they won it earlier this year. How can organizations and individuals continue to promote and sustain this steady growth?
Well, certainly it's easy at the college level because there are something like 340 Division I programs for women's volleyball, far fewer for men, but slowly but surely growing. Easy to do on the high school level also because almost any high school has women's volleyball, women's basketball, things like that. One area where people can help is to support organizations like the Starlings and like First Point to make it possible for more young people who might otherwise not be able to afford playing club volleyball, any club sport, not just volleyball, but there is no club sport that I'm aware of that is inexpensive, very reasonably priced, whether it's travel soccer or AAU basketball. Unless somebody's on a scholarship, it's not cheap. It's not cheap for a parent even to travel along and support their daughter, their son. And so anything we can do to make it more affordable, to lower the barriers to entry, I think is a really helpful thing. So certainly there's some great things happening on participation in volleyball, but there's a lot of room for growth, especially for financially disadvantaged populations and parts of the country.
Coach, I can see your passion for truly growing this sport and youth in general on the men's side, as well as the girls' side. Volleyball has taken you to incredible heights. You could have done anything following your playing career. Why women's volleyball?
When I got my coaching start, one of our boys was in ninth grade and decided to play high school volleyball at his small high school here in Southern California. And he had a really rough start, that team did. They lost every match. They lost 31 matches, but they also lost every set of every match. So they were 0-93. And one of those sets near the end of the season, they were up 20-10, huge lead, but lost 25-23. And at the end of that set, we parents were sitting there and just yearning for them to taste some tiny bit of success. They never did that season. But my wife looked over at me and said, "You got to help them, Karch. We got to figure out a way to help them get over the hump and at least get to 25 once in 90 times before the other team." And so I asked the school if I could become involved, and they were very sweet and allowed me to. And so the team, I coached them the next year, and they made real strides. And it was so cool because the first match of the next season, they were playing a team that had beaten them like a drum the season before, and they won 25-19. If you had watched them, you'd have thought they had just won the Olympic Games and a gold medal. It just went nuts. It was one of my most proud coaching moments to see them go from absolute rock bottom to more success, and then calm them down. Said, "Hey, if we could win one of those, maybe we could win another, maybe even three, and win the match." And they ended up winning that match. And then I got involved with Hugh McCutcheon, who was the great coach of the men's team that won a gold medal in 2008 in Beijing. And then he switched and became the coach of the women's team and asked me to join his staff. It's a long story with some coincidental circumstances, but bottom line, I got a wonderful opportunity to coach under him and to become involved with this program almost 15 years ago exactly. And I just fell in love with this program, with the people in it, with the women who are such models of being strong, being intelligent, being dedicated, being willing to sacrifice, being great teammates. And so it's just been an incredible honor and privilege to be associated as assistant coach and then as head coach with the USA Women's Program. And that's how I got started. And just I've spent now almost a quarter of my life, as I'm just a little over 60, 15 years.
You look great, Coach.
Dedicated to helping this team pursue its best as people, everybody in this program as people, and as a team pursuing sustained competitive excellence.
Now, Coach, you have a wealth of experience from the grassroots level as a high school coach, coaching your boys, leading them to success, and now with the national team. From your perspective as a coach, how do you believe allyship can be strengthened in the volleyball community, and what steps need to be taken to ensure that women's sports in general gets the recognition and the support that it deserves?
What I do revere and cherish is what is right and what is true. And it is absolutely right that girls and women should have wonderful and as many opportunities as boys and men in sports. I think it is important to have a healthy body and a healthy mind, no matter what gender anybody is, what sex anybody is. And so to have those opportunities, which started just a little over 50 years ago, even though women's volleyball started before that, but Title IX certainly helped accelerate that process. And so anytime that we can support opportunities, expanded opportunities, I think is the right thing to do. And so again, revering what is right and what is true. And I don't see how there's anything untrue about pursuing those expanded opportunities for all young people, girls and boys in sports.
And speaking more generally in sports, how can male athletes, coaches, and fans actively participate in fostering that more inclusive environment and supportive environment of women's sports?
Well, I think one of the things that comes to mind is that there are a lot of parents out there who want to raise good women eventually, good adult women and good adult men. And so there are lots of parents of daughters out there who can work hard to try to provide and support their daughters and try to I guess, make it possible, expose them to a variety of interests. I'd love it if everybody at least began to play an instrument. There's really good benefits to having some musical background for developing brains, but also to try different sports and not necessarily volleyball, but find something that clicks. Some people love individual sports, but they have to try them to find out whether they love that. Some others really resonate to team sports and the connection aspect and the relationship aspect to that. But for parents to provide a variety of early experiences, beginning experiences, and let their children, their daughters, their sons choose and find what they really resonate to, I think is something that can be a huge help for parents to try to expose children to a variety of those kinds of experiences.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And it's so important that that is shared as well. I also would say when it comes to male allyship and women's sports is understanding the role and the responsibility, the power of that. What role do you see men playing in advancing gender equality in terms of sports?
Within our program, we love it when former and retired women's national team players decide to, or national team members decide to stay in the sport by getting into coaching. And we have lots of developmental programs with exactly that in mind. And so there are a number of former members of this program who are great role models for young people, girls and boys, who go on to a new career, a second career besides playing. And so certainly whatever we can do to support that, I think is really important, to have people who can be great mentors to young people. So on the women's side, it's great to have women's national team players to continue their involvement. Almost all of the opportunities are in women's volleyball because, again, there are 340 Division I women's volleyball programs, probably only about 30 to 40 men's Division I programs. So there's a big skew in terms of scholarships. There's probably something like 15, 16,000 for women and a couple of hundred for men. But as much as we can do to develop opportunities for both the women who used to play in this program and the men to continue their involvement, whether it's on the women's side or the men's side, I think is great to have former team members who have those experiences to pass on and inspire young people who might one day dream to be a member of Team USA.
Wow, those numbers are alarming. And as the sport continues to grow, we hope to see that better balance, but it is beginning to diversify in different formats like beach volleyball, sitting volleyball. How do you see this diversification influencing the future of this sport?
First of all, a big prop to our sitting teams, especially our women. They have just been dominating at the Paralympics. Can't wait to cheer them on later this year and see if they can win yet another gold medal. So fun to follow their success and their dominance, essentially. But I think the number one thing is to try to create more opportunities, as many as possible, for participation. Not everybody is going to love volleyball, of course. Some people will lots of people will fall in love with different activities, whether it's sports or music or the arts or whatever. But to expose people to a range of opportunities, and some of them will pick volleyball, and then they have, as you mentioned, a greater variety from which to choose. If they have some disabilities, a great fit might be to participate in sitting volleyball. If they have an affinity for sand, they can get into the beach game as that keeps growing. Or if they have an affinity, and that's more of a 2-on-2 version, much smaller team, just one teammate. Or they might find a reel that they resonate to indoor volleyball with 6 on the court at any one time. But to have that wide range of participation opportunities, I think is a big one.
Let me tell you, I've tried my hand at beach volleyball and it is just not for me. You are one of a kind. We don't get much sand here in the Midwest, but I do enjoy it whenever I go on vacation or go and visit somewhere on the coast. And yeah, it takes the right person. And I've just learned that it's just not me, but I'll continue to try, Coach. I'll continue to try and learn new things. Lifelong learner, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's not for everybody, but and there are, as you say, if you live in Minnesota, there in the summertime, it's the land of 10,000 lakes, so there's lots of lakeside beaches available, but for much of the year, it's not possible. It needs to be in warmer climates, but it's still growing. I think sand volleyball getting added was the fastest new sport. I think it was the 90th sport to be added to the range of NCAA national championships, official sports. And it only took a couple of years. Big props to former American Volleyball Coaches Association Executive Director Kathy DeBoer, AVCA. She was a big help in pushing that. And now the Sand National Championship is a really fun event to watch. Unfortunately, it's on the same weekend in early May as the Indoor Men's Championship. So got to have 2 TV screens going at once. But both those sports are fantastic. And that's another sign of growth, is that the men's indoor championship has expanded from 4 to 8 teams in that tournament. The women, it's 64, but there is growth there. And on the sand side, it's a really fun tournament format where 5 teams, 5 pairs represent their institution, their school, and the ones play against each other right down to the 5s, but any pair of those 5 might be the pair that wins the dual competition between schools. Really, I'd recommend people trying to watch some of that this coming April and May. Really fun.
Gotta tune into that. Now, the volleyball community will surely be tuning in to the U.S. women's national team as you guys go to compete in the 2024 Olympic Games in Paris. I'm going to go ahead and say congratulations, Coach. What does it mean to represent your country on such a prominent stage?
The Olympics inside the lines is no different than any other tournament that anybody played. Inside the lines, it's no different, but outside the lines, it's very different. First of all, a country like the United States, people often don't realize, they think, whoa, this is awesome. I love watching this sport or that sport. And they think, they wonder, what have they been doing the last 4 years? This is so cool to get to watch them. And they don't realize how much blood, sweat, and tears are going into that for almost on a continuous basis from one Olympics to the next. It just kind of comes back up on the radar for a few weeks. But it's also really exciting because millions of people get to see things with like a sport like volleyball that they might not normally pay attention to the other 3 years, 11 months of every typical Olympic cycle. And it's the only event where the athletes, at least in volleyball, stay inside a village. And there's this incredible aspect to that. Countries from around the world, sports from around the world get to meet new people. It can be overwhelming. Nor all the other tournaments we play, our players and most of our staff pair up and share a hotel room. But in the Olympic Village, it's very different. Huge cafeteria that can seat 6,000 or 7,000 people at a time. You walk to your different stations, but you see from the most amazing gymnasts who might be certainly some of the shortest people in the room, but that doesn't make them any less of an athlete, to
Uh-huh.
some of the biggest, some of the tallest basketball players on the planet, some of the biggest, strongest weightlifters and wrestlers, and
Wow.
everything in between. So it can be an overwhelming experience outside the sidelines. But inside the sidelines, we got to remember that it's still the same game. We serve, we play with 3 blockers at the net, 3 defenders in the backcourt. We have to still run our offense when the other team is serving. So we have to do all the same things that we do in any other tournament, but there are a lot of extra activities that come along with it, extra potential distractions that come along with it. And that's one of the challenges of reaching the highest level of performance at the Olympic Games, is often the stuff that happens outside the sidelines or between matches, because you play about once every 2 days.
How do you overcome the bigness of the moment playing on the largest platform in the world? How do you overcome that? The nerves, the anxiety, the doubt. I mean, you've been there so many times.
I think the key is what I said, is that it's still really simple. Put a little circle into a big square. And that's the same whether we do it in our home in practice on a Monday morning at 9 a.m. or whether it's the Olympic gold medal match. It's how do we execute the fundamentals, which don't change at all. In fact, if we try to change them, or we try to do a lot more than we try to do in practice or in other tournaments, then we're probably going to end up with a lot less. So we're just going to rely on our training and execute the things that we've shown and proven we have a history of being able to do, to rely on those solid fundamentals. And another huge aspiration for our program, of course, is to try to out-team every opponent across the net. That's not executing a serve or a pass. That is trying to raise the level of the people around me and to try to add up to more than the sum of our parts. And certainly our team did that incredibly well in Tokyo 2.5 years ago on the way to winning a gold medal. We don't have a single dominant offensive player in our program, and so we have to rely on executing team volleyball really well and being incredible teammates. And that group of people, not just the 12 at the Olympics in Tokyo, but all 23 of our core members that year. We were 23 strong. There were 11 people who could not travel to the Olympics because you only get to take 12 on the roster. And every one of those 23 people made us better. And we hope to have the same thing happen this year. We will get to travel 12. There will be lots more people behind the scenes. And hopefully we're all making each other better and adding up to more than the sum of our parts. And that's when really special things happen.
As you mentioned, you won gold in 2021 in Tokyo. So as the defending champs of the Olympics, how are you guys feeling going into this year's games?
I tend to shy away from that. It's a natural title to use, defending. In my mind, there's really nothing to defend. That medal is in the hopper. Everybody's got those. And now we're going after a new one. That one's not going to be taken away, never will be. And in fact, we're going in this year not as the favorite. We are the number 2 team in the world right now. The team that really did best in 2023 was the Turkish women's national team. They played a great season, very few losses. They won their Olympic qualifier and won Volleyball Nations League. And so they have kind of set the mark. There are probably 5 or 6 really strong teams who can all contend fiercely for a gold medal. We are one of them. But I wouldn't say we're the favorite going in, and so we have some work to do, but we're excited to see how we can add up to the most and to come closest to our potential in this opportunity that we earned by winning our Olympic qualifier last September in Poland.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm really, really excited to follow those games and see you guys make podium. You definitely have a huge fan here. Now, Coach Kiraly, this is where we go into a segment of the show where we go into rapid fire questions. So we're going to ask you a series of questions, and you'll have up to 5 seconds max to answer each.
Okay.
So we're going to apply a little bit of pressure.
Boom.
All right. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. If you could pick any theme song for the U.S. women's national team, what would it be?
Frank Sinatra, That's Life.
Oh, I love it.
Just because I know I only have 5 seconds, I already gave you the answer, but it's got a great theme that life knocks us down and we need to stand back up and keep throwing ourselves into it. Life is tough. It has its highs and its lows, and certainly sports accelerates that. We have highs and lows and we always have to pick ourselves back up and get, as he says, back in the race.
All right. Your favorite playing surface, indoor or beach?
Currently indoors. I had that vacillate back and forth over the course of my career, and it varied. But as I've been so involved in indoor volleyball the last 15 years, that's my favorite.
Famous person you'd like to meet?
Abraham Lincoln.
Oh, wow. I'm from Springfield, Illinois, the home of Abe. So
all right.
that means a lot. Most memorable coaching moment in your coaching volleyball career?
I shared one of them with our high school team, but another was helping guide this women's program to the gold medal in Tokyo.
When you're not coaching volleyball, what are you doing?
Thinking about coaching volleyball, and also my wife and I are proud parents of 2 boys who are 33 and 31, and so they're fine young men and love spending. We're very blessed that they live so close by, and we get to see them at least once a week. But family is a big one.
Shout out to the Kiraly family. Of all your medals, which was the sweetest?
I don't know that I can say one. They were each different. And the special thing about the first one was that we didn't have high expectations of winning the tournament. And when we did, we were on cloud 9. I felt like for 6 or 8 weeks, I was walking around, not even touching the ground.
Though far from the end of your coaching career, what is one thing you wish to leave with the U.S. women's national team?
A thirst for learning and mastery. That's how we will pursue sustained competitive excellence.
Coach Kiraly, this was such an amazing conversation. Thank you for joining us on About Time. But most importantly, thank you for your commitment to elevating sports and women and girls in sports as well. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you so much for the time, and good luck to you and to a big year of 2024.
And that's a wrap for season 1 of our About Time podcast. Thank you, Coach Kiraly, and all of our podcast guests for making our debut season a huge success. And big thanks to our talented host, Marquis Freeman, for leading 10 inspiring conversations. We also wanted to express immense gratitude to our partner, Hudl, and your phenomenal team of staff for bringing this podcast to life. Thank you for your unwavering support to help us advance our mission and move the numbers of women in coaching. About Time podcast community, we appreciate you tuning in for season 1. And if you're looking for more inspiration and impact, check out our upcoming events at WeCOACHsports.org.
Well, that's our show. Thanks for listening. If you want to hear more episodes like this, be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and to our YouTube channel. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.